Welcome back to another episode of Psycosmos. Today we are going to go into the Zodiac. I'm going to give a brief description of each sign and then open up conversations later in the comments for people who have questions. Stay tuned for more. Alrighty, people, thank you so much for watching and tuning in. This is going to be a 12-part series on the Zodiac. I am going to cover a little bit of other things as well in the Zodiac, such as the sign of Ophiuchus and Cetus as well, which a lot of people argue are two additional zodiacal signs, but we're just going to stick to the original 12 today. Now, before I get this started, I do want to cover a couple of basic things that a lot of people don't know about the Zodiac, specifically the elements and the directions of cardinal, mutable, and fixed. So first we'll talk about the elements. The elements are in four categories. We start from the bottom going up. We have earth, then water, then air, then fire. Now keep in mind, these are just general attributes, and they don't actually make you completely this type of elemental way. It's just more of a generalized way of meeting people and expressing different personality traits, different human qualities. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that just because your generic zodiac sign, like for example your sun sign, that's the sign that most people use. So if you're born, for example, I have Aries up on the screen. If you're born between March 21st and April 21st, then generally you're considered an Aries, which is generally considered a fire sign. Fire signs are very witty, they're very whimsical, but maybe you're an Aries and you're not those things. These are just classifications. These aren't necessarily things to pigeonhole you, and especially once you become more aware and more awakened to the mechanics of how the Zodiac works, then you'll fully be able to embrace all of the energies that you have, and you'll also be able to find the energies that you don't have, which I think is also very important as well. But earth signs are generally very stable. They're pretty good with money. They're hard workers. They can also sometimes be very stubborn, somewhat materialistic, maybe even potentially lazy. Water signs, which are next on the list, they're generally considered very emotional creatures. They're very kind, somewhat manipulative at certain points. They're big crybabies most of the time. And a lot of them are attributed with like psychic type abilities. The next one would be air. Air is very a logical sign. They're very good at communication, and we'll get into that with some examples later on. But air is normally very intelligent. They can also sometimes be somewhat ditzy and kind of unique in their own realm. And then fire signs are sometimes described as being aggressive, very hardworking, very intelligent, and they're also very persistent. They love to chase and go after what they want in life. So that's just a basic rule. The next we have the directions, which would be cardinal, fixed, and mutable in that order. So, for example, Aries is generally considered the first zodiacal sign. It is a cardinal fire sign. Now, it's funny because a lot of people would assume that it starts with Earth. Earth is actually the next one, Taurus, but we'll get into why that is a little bit later. Cardinal is a more so personality type, as well as fixed and mutable. Cardinal signs are generally go-getters. They're very one-directional. They're very much so integrated into being able to start a task, but a lot of the stereotypes around them are that they don't do well in finishing tasks. The next one would be fixed signs. Fixed signs are very somewhat stubborn, but not necessarily. It's more so that they really know what they know. The fixed signs, for example, would be Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Leo. These are the four faces of Ezekiel's vision. They're fixed for a reason. They're very large signs in the sky, generally speaking, and they also were considered basically the four cardinal points as far as the dietary goes. Very interesting concept there. And then the last one would be mutable. These are the enders. These are the closers, if you want to think of it that way. Mutable signs are very good at being jack of all trades. They're very good at juggling a wide proportion of things, but they kind of fall into that category of jack of all trades, master of none. Although the rest of that is still better than master of one. So mutable signs are very good at destroying and then allowing the things that they do destroy to be recreated. So what you're going to find is that cardinal is a lot like the G, as in generation. Fixed is very much so like the O in oscillation, and mutable is very much so like the D in destruction, which is God, God. So basically, these three elements are combined with the other elements of earth, fire, water, and air to basically assist in gravitating people towards certain things, right? So just because you're a fire sign and your partner is also a fire sign, let's just take Aries and Sagittarius, for example. Aries is more of a cardinal fire sign, and Sagittarius is more of a mutable fire sign. So these two, although they can totally get along, and actually they often do. I know a lot of pairings which are Aries and Sagittarius in real life. You will find that there are elements of that cardinal and mutable directiveness, which actually can kind of coincide with that. On the flip side of things, if you were to take two signs such as Cancer and Libra, Cancer is a water sign and Libra is an air sign, but they're both cardinal, so they can actually get along pretty well. So this is actually how most of the time, in a very simplified way, the zodiac comes into play in a lot of these things. But now that I've kind of given the preface, what I'm going to do now is we're going to get into the zodiac. Starting with Aries, obviously. We have to start with Aries because you're so damn impatient that we have to put you first. I'm also going to be pretty funny in this, so just, bear with me here. Aries, you are the light of the party in most senses. You are also some of the biggest naive know-it-alls that I've ever met in my entire life. And I love Aries. I actually love every single sign, and I also have irks with every single sign. We're going to get into that, but let's just be playful. Let's have constructive criticism. I already know probably half the Aries are smashing their keyboards right now because they don't like what I'm saying, or already preparing to type in comments on their phones or whatever. Aries, you guys are cardinal fire signs ruled between the dates of March 21st and April 21st. Primavera, as we used to call it back in the day. Actually, we still call it today, but primavera, of course, means spring. March 21st was actually considered the beginning of the new year before it was changed in our calendar system. So this is actually going to be placating into the astrology of the higher realms, being space, I guess you could think of it that way. And Aries is generally ruled by two planets, the first being Mars. That's actually its main ruler by a very wide variety of margins. Mars is actually a very fast planet that a lot of people did not know this. It is outside of the Earth's orbit in relation to the Sun. However, the Earth is it moves like I think half the speed of Earth, but its distance is like crazy. So Mars is actually considered a very fast-moving planet, all things considered. I think it moves in 600 and some odd days around the sun. And of course, for everybody who might be into flat Earth, just put that flat Earth or round Earth, just put it aside for right now. I'm talking about planetary objects, the movements that we can track with our senses. So I'm not talking about flat or round Earth. Let's just put that aside just for this conversation, okay? So getting that out of the way. We have two planets that mainly rule this. Mars, as I said, very fast, very speedy. It's something that's heavily attributed with Aries. The second being the Sun, only minorly because the Sun is known as what is called an exaltation in the sign of Aries. Exaltations are basically where these planets have a lot of power, whereas Mars has its home in Aries. That's both of those are important, but the home kind of takes a much more bigger precedence, which is why I have Mars bigger on this screen here. But the Sun is exalted in Aries. What does that mean? Well, think about it like this. Why do we have the rat and the ram as two animals that have to deal with Aries? Because Aries represents the spring. It represents the conquering or the beginning. As a cardinal sign, it's very good at creation. It's very good at starting. So it is the beginner sign. It is the one that's at the helm. This is why both the rat and the ram have very hard heads. They're actually known for a lot of their skull abilities. Rats are also considered very intelligent, as are goats and sheep and rams in a lot of the times. However, it even goes beyond that. In the Grand Man of the Zohar, the head, the cerebrum, is considered the aspect which rules Aries. Okay, so even each one of these zodiacal signs, as I'm going to show you in this video, are in accordance with the human body. So starting from the top and going down, we have the constellation of Aries that I put up here, which it kind of looks like half of one of the rams If you look at the zodiacal sign, it looks like a V shape. That's because it represents like the top of the head, right? It represents like if you look at that cerebrum, that top part of the brain, it kind of has that crease. It kind of makes that like weird, almost an M shape. That's really where this constellation comes from, and that's why it was considered to be associated with the higher part of the brain. Higher part of the brain, the cerebrum, is also, of course, responsible for logical, quick, fast thinking, etc., etc. So Aries governs the brain, the head, the face, eyes, ears, and muscles. It is a very hardworking, intelligent, and fast-paced sign, but it can also be very naive, hot-headed, and somewhat childish in a lot of ways. Aries is the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. I'm sure a lot of people have heard that before in the Judeo-Christian faith. Especially Christian faith, what is the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the world? It is the return of the Son. Just like, again, in parallel with Jesus Christ, the return of the Son. The Son is coming back to take away the sins, which is the death of winter. And so the sun is very powerful. It comes up in spring and it blossoms, all these white little blooms all over the world, just like a ram or sheep's wool. So again, Aries is a phenomenal sign. They're very good at what they do, but I think that the biggest recommendation I have to most Aries is that you need to calm down. Everything is not a race. I know that you think it is. Everything is not a race. In the Chinese zodiac, it is the rat. And the way that the rat actually becomes the first animal to cross the finish line in the story of the Chinese zodiac, if you want to go read about that, I'm doing this video on the Lunar New Year, which is actually pretty cool. The rat actually rides basically the back of the bull, and then right at the last second he jumps off and scurries in front of the bull. The bull is the second animal to pass the finish line of heaven in the story. So the rat is very smart, it's very intelligent, and knew that the bull was stubborn and it was going to have a very good pace and it was going to eventually make it past the finish line. So it hopped on its back and it waited for the right moment to strike. That is very good with Aries. A lot of Aries energy is associated with martial arts, abilities to fight, etc., etc. They can also be pretty good actors, as I have Robert Downey Jr. and Emma Watson here. Now, I just want to preface, I got these pictures of celebrities by typing in famous Aries actors. I just so happen to know who these two individuals are, but there's a lot of people on this list that I actually don't know. So just bear with me. I'm not really integrated into the Matrix as much with these celebrities and such. So, but what I did like was I was able to find certain qualities, especially in the way that people look. If you look at the head of both Robert Downey Jr. and Emma Watson, they have these very big heads. They even have, Robert Downey Jr. is getting a little old here, but even Emma Watson has that M shape, just like we do here with the zodiacal Aries sigil. She has these big, bright eyes. So does he. He has this big, huge smile. Very, very pretty faces. They're very petite, smaller types individuals in their body structure, but if they so choose to, they can actually be quite muscular as well. Aries are very playful. They're much so like sheep. They're much so like little fawns. Not specifically like rams that are going around butting heads all the time, even though they do have a tendency to do that. They're much more like little sheeps, kind of frolicking in the grass. They love to play. They love to make anything a game. They're very much so the child of the zodiac because they are the first ones. Just like you start out as a child when you're young. So you'll see that a lot of Aries have really pretty smiles. They have really pretty faces. They have these big heads, especially the foreheads. I think the foreheads are the thing that give Aries away more than anything for me. I'm able to actually guess if people are Aries based off of like, hey, wow, you got a big head. I don't tell people that, but that's actually one of the reasons why I think you might be an Aries. So for Aries, the last things to note on Aries would be the cell salt, which is potassium phosphate. And again, cell salts are part of that Schussler's 12 cell salts that all of us need to in order to become our best selves, right? So a lot of Aries could potentially have a potassium deficiency or a phosphorus deficiency. Really depends. But just looking to cell salt anatomy and such, a lot of very powerful constellations and stars I've put here. You guys can do that research, as well as the herbs. I'm not going to get into a lot of this stuff here, but you can feel free to go do some research yourself, or maybe this will help you later on. But I did want to touch on the other animals, which are the rat, the wolf, the bee, and Cetus. So rat obviously is Chinese zodiac. The wolf is associated with Aries in a lot of sense, as a negative connotation. It's kind of like that negative, aggressive, hyper angry type of animal, as well as a bee. A bee can either be like a honeybee, which goes and pollinates and saves the entire world, or it can be like a hornet, which is just like fuck hornets. Like, why do they even exist? So that's a lot of the time what Aries energy is. But one thing I did want to touch on is what people consider a 14th zodiacal sign, which would be Cetus. This goes from, I believe, like March 21st to the 28th or something along those lines. I don't consider this a 14th zodiacal sign. I think that the 13th zodiacal sign being a Fucus makes sense. I get where people are coming from Cetus, though. Cetus essentially represents a gap. It represents a void. It represents a culmination of energy that is situated right at the very start of the new year, which would again be March 21st. It really represents the conquering of the lower aspects of all creation. Cetus, of course, is like a sea monster. It's like a multi-headed Hydra sea monster, which again, a lot of the time is in reference to the sacrum. Or the cerebellum. It's like a lower aspect of creation. So that doesn't mean anything for Aries specifically. However, the ancient wise sages used to consider Cetus a very important constellation. But there were other ones like Ophiuchus and Draco, Ursa Major. These are very, very important signs as well, constellations being. And I don't think that there's really anything too much to Cetus. However, the one aspect of why it's important is because it represents that crux between creation and destruction, essentially. Pisces is a mutable sign. Pisces connects to Aries. We're going to get into that a little bit in later on in this video. Pisces connects to Aries, and there's just this gap. There's this gap of unknown. How do we go from end to beginning? What is this this thing that has essentially done this? Well, when God was all infinite, it had to lower its vibration in order for us to even exist. And I say that quite often. So God as an infinite being, in order for us to exist as human beings, in order for everything to be created, had to disseminate itself downward, had to be dense, it had to be, a lot of people think lower vibrational because we're physical matter, so that's lower vibrational frequency. And all of these are somewhat true. But basically that beginning, ending point, they govern it. It's like a Cthulhu type of monster, if you want to think of it that way, which is kind of a very weird way of thinking about it. But when you really think about it, something very dark and sinister, something that could have dragged down all of the source of creation, the source of light, into a void, essentially. Now, that doesn't actually take precedence over Aries, but Cetus is like an amalgamation of examples as to how creation continues. Because Aries is the conqueror. Aries is the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. So even if this big, nasty monster is coming to lower our vibrations, here's Aries with the sword in the air, ready to strike, ready to fight. And that's basically what that represents for Aries. So that's kind of my little spiel on Aries. We're going to move on to Taurus. Now, I love Taurians. Actually, Taurus is my moon sign, so I feel like I can speak pretty well on this. In fact, as a Taurus, I feel like I can speak pretty well on anything because we can be some arrogant POSs. Taurus is a very stubborn sign. It is fixed earth, so fixed meaning, stationary, unmovable, right? And then earth signs, which are already known for being stationary and unmovable. You can only imagine that Taurus is probably the most stubborn sign on the whole list. It definitely is, I can assure you. I'm so stubborn about this that I'll just continue talking, I guess. Taurus is a very interesting and weird sign. It's one of the only signs I've ever known that's ruled by 3 planets. It's actually the only planet, or it's the only zodiac sign I know that's ruled by 3 planets, being Venus mainly and Earth, as well as it has an exaltation with the moon. So these 3 planets actually govern the sign of Taurus. Taurus represents the aspect of Earth itself. And in the sky, when we're looking for Taurus specifically, we're looking for Orion, which are the 3 dots. You can find Orion's belt pretty easily when you're looking in the sky, especially if you're in the Western world or the Northern Hemisphere. If you're looking during the winter time, you'll be able to find Taurus very, very easily in the sky. You just have to basically look to the right, and you'll see this big V shape with a whole bunch of bright, shiny stars. Very, very pretty. Really cool. Taurus is a very stubborn sign. It is considered one of the godliest or holiest signs. It is also considered one of the most evil signs. Everything has to have a balance of some sort. So you will find Taurians are very interesting people, to say the least. The aspect of Taurus rules the throat and the shoulder area. So Taurians are pretty loud speakers. They can be loud. They can, especially for the males, they can have very deep voices. For the females, they're very beautiful. They're often very, very earthly, very feminine in nature. For the men, they're actually pretty big. I've seen a lot of Taurians which are quite stocky. But Taurians are known for being determined. They have high willpower. They can even be known for being wealthy, very good with money. As an earth sign, they manifest wealth very easily. They're actually the sign that's associated with wealth more than any other sign in the zodiac. And they can also be known as being very lazy, stubborn, and subtly manipulative. And I know from my own personal experience, a lot of Taurians can be that subtly manipulative. Now, they have sodium sulfate as their cell salt, and there are other animals. Mainly, there are no other animals that are really associated with Taurus. It's mainly just Taurus or men. Specifically, the constellations of Orion and Perseus fall around the realm of Taurus in the sky. But there are other things that I want to placate and make precedence on for Taurus as well, being the Pleiades and the star Algol. The Pleiades, to start with, is in the shoulder of the bull. It's probably the best aspect that is within Taurus, is known as the Seven Sisters. It's about 6 stars. If you've ever seen the car company Subaru, Subaru in Japanese actually is what the Japanese refer to as the constellation or the cluster of the Pleiades. So they named that completely after the Pleiades. Additionally, Taurus, as in Toyota. Toyota actually uses the Taurus symbol with their car logo. Again, the Japanese know what they're doing. They really love Zodiac, and obviously it has done them well because they make a lot of car sales. However, as I'll continue with this, the Pleiades is known as the Seven Sisters, which was a very heavenly aspect of the sky. It was actually regarded as one of the most important clusters in the entire sky to a lot of the ancient astronomers. And it's just an overall very pretty part of Taurus. Next, though, we have Algol, which is the eye of the bull. Algol is considered the most evil star in the entire sky. The eye of the bull does not escape anybody. It is considered like the very negative, fearful, lower, scary aspect of God. Like, hey, I'm going to fucking kill you because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Algol is nothing to screw with. It is a very scary kind of star. Whenever it comes over, whether the moon or the sun or whatever passes it, you'll often find very interesting things happen on those days. So that's just one of my little things for you. And then there's also a lot of other things like cannabis actually is very much so associated with Taurians. I have known a lot of Taurus people who love to smoke marijuana or cannabis. So that's funny as well. The one thing I will say about Taurus is, even in the Chinese zodiac, they don't take away from the bull. Everybody recognizes that the bull is the animal that rules Taurus. I don't think I've ever found a zodiacal interpretation where the bull wasn't really associated with Taurus. I think there are a few others, like maybe a Mesoamerican one, like a jaguar or something. I can't really recall that right now. But the bull is generally Taurus, right? And when we look at other Taurians, we're really looking for a lot of inflection in the face. We have these big eyes, especially in the females. They'll have these big brown cow eyes, these big moo eyes. They have very pretty structure in their face. I know that this is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson because I used to watch wrestling when I was a kid. I have no idea who this girl is. Jennifer Gardner, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember what her name is. She's very pretty, though. You can see Taurians are actually very big on their hair. I do recall Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson actually has a tattoo of a bull on his shoulder, I think. And I remember that from when I was a kid. But either way, a lot of Taurians are generally very wealthy, so it makes total sense that we have actors and actresses here. They also have the same thing that Aries do with the big head, so you can actually guess Aries and Taurus based on their head structure if they have that big head, especially the jaw, the mouth. You can see here she's got very, very luscious big lips. This is a Venetian trait, of course. Even the bull nose, if you look at the rock here, actually this is why I chose this picture. You can see from the underside, it looks like he has a bull's nose. Very important. You can also tell by ears. The neck is going to be super thick in a lot of the males, as well as a stocky figure. And the females are actually going to have very... what's the best way to say this? I guess voluptuous bodies. A lot of the time, they're very earthly. They're very down to earth. A lot of them have nice hourglass figures, if you want to think of it that way. Esoterically, the bull really represents the slaughter. A lot of the time, you'll find bullfighting or Mithras slaying the bull. This is because when we came out of Noah's or Gilgamesh's flood about 6,000 or so years ago, the sign that was coming up over the horizon was the bull, so we had a lot of bull worship. If you go to the Egyptians, they worshipped the bull Apis, and there's just a ton of other references, like in the Nordic mythologies of Ymir the Frost Giant being licked by a bull, and then in the Nordic stories, there's basically one of their creation myths is about a bull licking an ice giant until it melted into the Milky Way galaxy. And if you go and you turn to the Hindus, Brahman takes an aspect of a bull and milks the Milky Way galaxy into existence. All of these are in reference to Taurus. So Taurus is actually a sign, especially in our most recent history, which is associated with creation. It's associated with giving the milk of substance in order to survive. So this is why I think it has been placated as such an important and integral sign in a lot of ways. But again, Taurus can also be quite evil. But conquering and slaying the bull, above Taurus is Perseus. Perseus is the constellation which references man, which is why we also have Orion fighting the bull. Conquering the earth, conquering our lower desires. The bull itself represents the cerebellum, the bull. It's the lower mind. So Taurus is a very interesting sign just in and of itself, just by that. But it's literally conquering the amygdala, the cerebellum, all these lower aspects of our brain, of our creation, the pituitary gland, all of these things. So very, very interesting, but ultimately Taurus is a very, very powerful, important sign. From my experience, it's been probably the most rare sign that I've ever found. And a lot of the time, Taurians can either be very quiet or they can talk quite a lot, like I do. And my moon is in Taurus, so I know a little bit of what I'm talking about here. So a lot of the time, May is associated with Taurus. April, as in Aries, A. May, as in me, as in I am. Taurians are associated very heavily with the aspect of God. Not like Taurians are better than anybody else. It's definitely not what I'm saying, because I've met some horrible Tauruses. But Taurus field, as another example, toroidal field. That's actually where we get the word Taurus field. I am, may, me, my. So these are all aspects of understanding yourself from a lower perspective in order to heighten to a higher perspective. So Tauruses are very interesting signs in that regard. That's going to be my little spiel on Taurus. Next, we have Gemini. You cheeky little two-faced liars. No, I'm just joking with you. Or am I? You'll never know, and it'll bother you. I know it. I'm just joking. Or am I? Anyway, Gemini is a sign of duality. It's a sign of... It's really the first sign which represents indecisiveness. Am I joking? I don't know. You tell me. Geminis are funny. I love Geminis very, very much. They are definitely the big comedians. They're big actors. They're big inflectuators. They love to speak in verbose tones, and they like to get a lot of people's attention. In the Chinese zodiac, they represent the tiger. Because the tiger obviously has stripes, just like the Gemini has the two. And for the car salesman, they're the Honda, or I think that's Honda. I don't even know. I don't know car sigils that well. I don't know cars, but I'm pretty sure that's Honda. It's either that or it's Hyundai. It's one of those. But either way, I'm going to be mixing that up with Pisces. Either way, the ruling planet of Gemini, which is associated between May 21st and June 21st, would be Mercury. Very, very intelligent. They're good speakers. They're very fast. They're quick-witted. They rule mainly the arms and parts of the upper lungs. So Gemini is associated a lot of the time with air, right? The upper lungs, not the diaphragm, which will come later. That'll be more in the Cancer and Leo territory. But the higher lungs. So you can breathe basically up high in the chest, or you can breathe low in the diaphragm. Well, the low diaphragm breath is mainly like Cancer and Virgo, and the high diaphragm breath is, or the not diaphragm, but the high chest breath, that's Gemini. Mutable air, mutable again being destructive in a good way. Destructive as in they're able to pinpoint all the BS and the crap. They love to create new things. So a lot of Gemini people will be actors or actresses. And in fact, Gemini is the sign of the actor or actress. In the sky, they're ruled by the two twins, Pollux and Castor. And in reality, Gemini actually is even deeper than that. It represents the bridegroom. The bridegroom is a concept of combining the masculine and feminine aspects of duality into one in order to achieve like enlightenment. So a lot of the time Mercury as in Hermes, is associated with Gemini. Gemini being, again, the Hermercural, Hermes, her Mercury. Mercury is a very, very, very fast. It's actually the fastest moving planet in our entire solar system. It goes around the sun, zippity doo dah, super fast. Everybody who likes Gemini doesn't really probably know Gemini, because a lot of Gemini people can come off as what is known as two-faced. In fact, I'd like to go over here to my handy-dandy little pictures. We have JFK and Marilyn Monroe, two very prominent Geminis who also were kind of together, supposedly, for a set period of time. But as you'll see, both of them have what I call the Mercury eyes. Now, this is something I find mainly in Geminis and Virgo. I'm going to bring it up in Virgo later. If you'll notice with a lot of people who have this mercurial energy, they have different shaped eyes because they have two sets. Okay, so what I'm getting at is they get this kind of stereotype as being two-faced. There's a reason for why we call it two-faced. It's because in their eyes are actually kind of different shapes, or they're looking in different directions. So a lot of people that you'll meet who have these Mercury eyes, as I call them, they're very, very intelligent, but most of the time they have these types of eye shapes. And I find it interesting mainly because Mercury, again, represents duality. The sun and the moon don't look very similar, but if you bring them together, it becomes an eclipse, right? So that's the whole point of what Mercury is supposed to represent. That mercurial aspect, the curiosity. So a lot of Geminis are very quick-witted, communicative, and intelligent, but they can also be indecisive and dishonest. They're actually one of the bigger liars of the Zodiac, next to probably Cancer and Sagittarius. However, with that being said, you can see their gemstones, their cell salts, and the other animals, which, a lot of the time, like the tiger and the twins are really the only two that stood out to me. I know that there are probably more, so if you got more, drop a comment down below. There are some herbs there for you guys as well. But essentially, Mercury is a very important planet, and Gemini is the sign that rules Mercury more so than any other sign. Additionally, if you go and you look at how astrology is set up from Aries to Virgo, I believe. Aries, of course, being having some sun energy, Taurus having some moon energy and the earth, and then Cancer comes next after Gemini, which would be the moon, and Leo would be the sun. But Mercury is kind of like there in the middle, right? They're kind of like there in the middle between Aries and Taurus, who get some sun and moon energy, and Cancer and Leo, who literally represent the embodiment of the sun and the moon. So they're this middle point, which is supposed to be like a mediator of sorts, which is why a lot of people say that they're two-faced. I just think a lot of the time that Geminis hate conflict. There are some Geminis that love conflict. Stay away from those people. They are awful. But other than that, a lot of Geminis are actually very intelligent, very intuitive, and they're very lovely to be around because a lot of the time they'll just tell you what you want to hear. And that's okay. Sometimes people need to hear what they want to hear, but a lot of the times it's not, and a lot of the times Geminis end up getting hurt. They overthink and they say, why is it that this person doesn't love me? I love me. Why doesn't this person love me? And then they have these intrinsic conversations with themselves. Ultimately, the bridegroom is associated with Jesus Christ a lot of the time too, which I'm not saying that Gemini is. Actually, Gemini has not only very good representation with Aldebaran and Polaris. Polaris is like kind of above Gemini and Cancer, and Leo actually. But it's more so that there's there's a very quirkiness to Gemini. In fact, one of the most evil parts of the sky is associated with Gemini as well, if I'm being very honest with you all. Gemini is not free from any of the positives or negatives, just like any other sign on this list. So although that they can be very quick-witted and intelligent and also very kind in a sense of wanting to embody that air element and want to communicate and get down to the issues of society, there's actually a small portion around where Gemini and Cancer link up. I would say that this is probably between like the 17th of June and the 26th, 27th of June. That's a very dark... I'm sorry if anybody's born in those time periods and or whatever, and they have this energy. That's actually considered a very dark part of the sky. That's considered this almost death. It's almost like a subtle death, and that is because if you look at the human body, this is where the neck and the body are connected. So it's a very dark aspect of where the head, which is considered a very godly or holy part of our bodies, it then is connected to this giant lunk, which in a lot of sense weighs us down, but also is our main vehicle of movement. If we didn't have this lower body, then we wouldn't be able to move around and do other things. But really, it's the brain that does all the work. So where does Gemini kind of fall? Well, Gemini's kind of in the middle of that, which is why, again, it's the bridegroom. It's the combination of these two faculties that come together, the nervous system, the arms. The arms are creators. The hands and the arms are how we use to communicate even in subtle body language. So there's a lot of aspects that are very, very good about Gemini. None of these zodiacal signs are bad, but again, it's all about understanding your energy and watching out for it, right? So that's going to cover my little thing on Gemini. Oh, Cancers, you miserable, crybaby, manipulative... No, I'm just playing. Don't cry. Don't cry. Okay, I know. I was just teasing. I'm a Cancer myself. I'm a male Cancer, which is actually probably the friggin' worst sign that you can have as a male. Sorry, not sorry at all my male Cancer bros out there. But Cancer is a very feminine sign, if not the most feminine sign. So a Cancer male like myself has to overcome a lot of different challenges. Just as a quick anecdote, I'll kind of explain a little bit about myself. Not saying I'm full of myself or anything, because I'm definitely not that. I'm super humble. No, that's a joke. Anyway, I grew up being bullied by women. I grew up getting bullied a lot, actually, especially by guys too. But when I was very, very young, like preschool, I would get bullied by like girls. And in fact, I was actually one of the smallest kids in the class because Cancers... especially when they're born, the Chinese Zodiac, for example, they attribute it to the rabbit, or a lot of the time they're attributed with crabs. These are small animals. So when Cancers, which represent a lot of maternal or motherly existence, when they are kind of put to when they're kind of born and they're put to the test in their youth, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of like hardship for a lot of Cancers, which is why a lot of Cancer people actually turn out to be either total pieces of crap, manipulative, crybaby losers, or they end up turning out to be extremely intelligent, hard workers who end up providing for a lot of people around them. And it's kind of, from my experience, it's kind of just a double lie. Like there's no way to get around how I want to say this, because I am a Cancer, so nobody take this personally, especially if you're a guy. But you either are a good Cancer or a bad Cancer. And I mean, even the name Cancer is a horrible name, and of course the disease came later on. But there's a reason why they named the disease what they did, because Cancer rules parts of the chest, the blood flow of the body, and how we get the disease Cancer is from when our cells smother or mother other cells. Okay, so the two biggest killers in the world are Cancer and heart disease, regardless of where you live. Cancer is literally when you're not living in tandem with the moon. You get Cancer when you're not living in tandem with the lunar cycles or the sacred secretion again. And that is why Cancer is ruled by the moon specifically. Cancer is the most maternal, the most feminine. It's actually the ruler of all of the water signs. And if I forgot to mention this, Taurus is the ruler of all the earth signs, Leo is the ruler of all the fire signs, and Gemini is the ruler of all the air signs. So yes, the spring signs, the beginning creator signs, these are considered the rulers of their respective signs, except for Aries, of course, because Aries is the child of the zodiac, whereas Leo is the refurbished fire. But we'll get into that in a second. Cancer rules the chest. A lot of the ribs, which we have 12 ribs, the parts of the stomach, the diaphragm, the womb, and parts of the pancreas and the spleen. It has like this rulership in this area, which is close to our mid center, but it's in our upper mid center chest, or the breasts. That's the big thing with a lot of Cancer energy. You will find a lot of female Cancer specifically will have well endowed breasts. That could also be a complete opposite thing too. They can also be completely flat-chested, and there's no judgment here. Nobody cares. But again, there's a lot of very funny things with Cancers, and we'll get into kind of how they look in a second. A lot of Cancers are described as being caring, protective, and empathetic. Again, protective like the rib cage. So if you want to think of Aries, Taurus, and Gemini being the guys who kind of start all this stuff, and then bleed all the head parts and the neck parts down into the rest of the body, Cancer is the one that protects the body. Cancer is the one that rules the rib cage, which houses all of the other organs, all the other meat and potatoes of the lower body. And really, Cancer represents the Holy Mother, the Holy Spirit, things of that nature, right? We'll get into a little bit here. Their negative traits, they can be very manipulative. They can be clingy, pessimistic, or even vulnerable to the wrong people. When it comes to Cancer, the important constellations and stars would be Sirius and the Canis, or the canine constellations, the big dog and the little dog. Cancer is not really well known for this, but they're actually very much so associated with dogs. Dogs are, again, they're kind of like the opposite of Leo, which would be the cat. So you have cats and dogs. Dogs, like wolves, howl at the moon. Dogs howl at the moon. And cats like to laze around in the sun. So the other animals that are associated with Cancer would be the rabbit and the elephant, as well as like the lobsters and the crabs and the crustaceans. Now, the crustaceans are, of course, the hard-shelled individuals. They have a hard shell on the outside. Their skeletal structure is that shell. It's on the outside. And then the meat on the inside is what all the people want to eat, right? It's that juicy center. That's basically what Cancers are. They give you this kind of, rib cage-like effect where they're going to block you out until they let you in, and then they show you how loving that they actually can be. I'm speaking from personal experience here. Now, it's associated with a rabbit because in the Chinese zodiac, because the rabbit is a white rabbit. And the moon is actually very difficult to track. If you have a telescope, it's actually the hardest planet to follow in the sky because it moves so friggin' fast. And if you've ever, like me, taken a telescope and tried to look at the moon, it moves so incredibly fast that you have to move the telescope basically every 5 minutes. And you don't really think that the moon is that fast in the sky, but it is. So astrologers back in the day were like, oh, that thing moves like a white rabbit. And the other thing is, Cancers are a very fertile energy. They're a mother energy. What do rabbits do? They breed like rabbits. So that's another reason why. And also, Cancer is very cute. It's Cancer is actually one of the ugliest signs, or it's one of the cutest signs. It's very hard to call a Cancer sexy, I think, and I'm speaking as a Cancer. They have a very charming allure to them. It's not like a Scorpio kind of sexual energy. It's very much so like a very loving, maternal, family-oriented energy. Like, I want to have a family with that person or whatever, So that's just like my little spiel on Cancer. Now, if you look for Cancer in the sky, it kind of looks like this little lobster shape. It does, for whatever reason, it doesn't look like its sigil. The sigil of Cancer, which is the 69, that represents a womb or breasts or the ever-flowing duality of the yin-yang. It's the aspect of the Holy Mother which keeps our entire cosmos in balance. It's the womb of space. And that is why the star Sirius is very important in this sign of Cancer. This is why Cancer rules the other water signs, being Scorpio and Pisces, because Isis, the star, is associated in the big dog of Canis Major. Again, Canis, Canine, etc., Cancer. The star Isis is the Holy Mother star. It's the star Sirius, which is where we get the word Isis, or the star Sirius is where we get the word Isis. Yeah, actually. So Sirius, like, it's a very serious star because it's our Holy Mother star. There's a reason why our sun is called a sun, because the sun that we have is in a binary or a trinary star system. I hear a lot of people say it's potentially a trinary with Methuselah, I believe, the third being the third star, I believe, in Libra. But either way, Cancer, very important star, very important energy, and it is in a binary at the very least with our sun, which is why we call our sun the sun, because our sun is the sun of the paternal aspect, and Sirius is the mother star, which is the maternal aspect. Okay, so that's, and the moon, of course, is a rock which represents that star Sirius, actually. So a lot of ancient people believed that Sirius even gave the moon its energy, not the sun. But regardless, we'll get into that another time. Looking at Cancers, you'll see that they are very pale. They have very round cheeks. They have these big, kind of, a lot of the time white faces, white skin, very bright in their pigmentation, and then they are also they got these big round moon faces. They're very susceptible to gaining weight because weight gain is associated a lot of the time with mucus, and Cancer is one of the more mucusy signs. And why is that? Because mucus is actually our white blood cells. That's what white blood cells are mainly made up of. It's basically crap. It's basically like pus. So mucus is not a bad thing necessarily. You actually do need mucus in order to survive. However, mucus is associated with weight gain. So Cancers actually can put on weight better than probably any other sign. Maybe even next to Taurus. Both those signs are pretty big with weight gain. But I think this is Ariana Grande and Elon Musk. So Elon Musk, you can see he's somewhat subtly manipulative, and Ariana Grande is this big maternal figure who's going around dating all these dudes, and none of them are good for her, and she sings about it and blah blah blah. I don't even know. I don't know a lot of Ariana Grande songs. Sorry, people, but the point I'm getting at is this: they have this energy where they don't have to be the most important person in the room. People designate them as the most important person in the room because they have this energy about them. But they're also very manipulative. They can come off as very moody, somewhat immature at certain points. Super manipulative, though. I mean, I can tell you as a Cancer, I've met a lot of Cancer males. They are like mega manipulative. I have tried to keep that in check my entire life. Ever since I've learned how, Cancers can be manipulative. So I know I can be manipulative, but what I try to do is I try to spin the tables so that other people are happy. I just want people to be happy. It's a very loving aspect, but sometimes Cancers can be very selfish and they want to manipulate people for their own negative reasons. So that's something to keep in mind and to watch out for with Cancers. Oh yeah, I should also mention that Cancers are known for having immaculate memories, which is why the elephant is oftentimes associated with Cancer, because elephants have great memories. And they also do a lot of bathing under the moonlight. They have a lot of these weird moon rituals for people who have studied elephants. And elephants, an elephant can kill a lion easily. In fact, elephants and rhinos maybe are probably the only two things in like the Sahara or the savannah or wherever lions lurk. They're probably one of the only things that can actually stand up to a lion, but they don't, because elephants are actually quite maternal animals. They don't go running around and stomping on people or killing people unless their young are in danger. But a lion most of the time will not try to screw with an elephant unless there's a whole pack of them and they can take one down for food. But a lot of the time they don't do that. Elephants just kind of stay away from lions and vice versa. So it's a very interesting dichotomy. Speaking of lions, let's get into our Leos. Finally, I know you've been sitting there ever so patiently, you fixed fire sign, wondering, when are they going to talk about me? When am I going to be brought up? I'm the most important. Yes, Leo, we know.
Leos, you beautiful creatures. You were born most of the time between July 21st and August 21st. Fixed fire signs. So, all right, Leos, you're born between July 21st and August 21st. You're a fixed fire sign. You're one of the calmer fire signs. A lot of the time, there are Leos who can get very angry and very aggressive. But sometimes Leos choose to not have that fire come out. And that's an okay thing. A lot of the time, Leos just kind of want to be not necessarily the center of attention, but they want to be known how great they are, and they are great. Why should we disagree with that? They are great. They represent the sun. If you're looking in the sky, you're trying to look for this kind of almost lion-shaped thing up in the sky. Set of stars there, and Leo really rules the heart, upper back, the blood, and parts of the spleen, specifically the red pulp of the spleen. Leo is a very, very, very interesting sign. They know themselves in the better than pretty much any other sign. They're also one of the most paternal signs, representing God's light or God's grace. But again, they also have a negative aspect, which I will get into. So if you look at the sigil of Leo, the lion, it looks actually like a sperm tail or a dragon. And that is why in the Chinese zodiac it looks like a dragon, or it is a dragon. But the sigil in the Western astrology looks like a little sperm tail, because whereas Cancer was the womb, Leo is the sperm, and both of those are what are necessary for creation. So a lot of Leos are described as being courageous, loyal, ambitious, creative, very loving, especially. Like they love if you love a Leo, they're gonna love you even more. But they can also be headstrong, bossy, arrogant, egoistic, and proud. Now, I have another word here, and I call this the supernova. Okay? I know a lot of Leo people. My mother, for example, was a Leo. She is no longer on this planet because she's dead. And the reason she died was because of what I call the supernova. The supernova is basically this effect that I see in Leos, where they're either shining bright like the sun and everyone loves to be around them, or they fucking implode on themselves and they do horrible things, like they drink heavily and they do drugs and they get involved with a bunch of shit that they know that they shouldn't, and they do it anyway. And then you know what ends up happening? They die. Just like a star. They die. And they leave everybody else who loved them behind. So, thanks, Mom. But anyway, so I'm just speaking from personal experience here. I have recognized a lot of Leos will literally implode on themselves. They'll take out anger and aggression on themselves by just becoming these like alcoholic, drug addicts, hyper obsessive, narcissistic, super proud people. And I will tell you, I know quite a lot of people with Leo energy, and it seems to be a common trait, especially people who dabble in the darker stuff. Hedonism or any of the dark mysteries. If you have any semblance of Leo energy, if you're born even close to the cusp of this on July 21st or August 21st, you better not dabble in those darker mysteries, because they will not do you justice. They will not serve you, and it'll ultimately end up just killing you. One of the big stars in Leo is Regulus, and Regulus is a very kingly star. It's actually towards the tail end of Leo in the later month of August. But that being said, lions and dragons are mainly the two kind of creatures that are associated with Leo a lot of the time. And if we look at a Leo, which again represents that sun archetype, the infinity, the analium, which is the pattern that the sun makes in the sky, the figure 8. It's an infinity sign. Why? Because Leos can just keep going and going and going. For example, I think this is this J-Lo? I don't know if this is J-Lo. If this is Jennifer Lopez, I don't know if this is. But if this is Jennifer Lopez, like, she just doesn't seem to ever go away. Same with this guy, Chris Hemsworth. He's very rugged and handsome. He's got this nice beard. They got this big mane of hair. You'll notice with Leos, I actually don't have a good example here, but if you get a Leo with a lot of hair, they have these big manes of hair. Looks like 80s hairstyles, They're very, very attractive people. Not necessarily like anything in particular. They get big bright eyes. They got the big strong, a lot of the time for the men especially, strong bodies. They're tall, they're handsome. The women are beautiful. Leo is a much better sign for males, just like Cancer is a much better sign for females. But c'est la vie, regardless, it doesn't matter. The point being, the Leo is a very paternal sign, and males with Leonic energy oftentimes have very, very good energy. However, I want to say the negative, other than the supernova. Full moons in August are the worst full moons of any time of the year. You want to fact check me? Look up the murder of Chris Watts and his family. He killed his whole family when there was a full moon in August, right before the school year was about to start. And that is actually the time, from what I can tell, that a lot of deaths occur through acts of like violence from a male's perspective, actually. Men on those full moons get very irrational, I feel. And I would probably be it would probably make the same thing to say for a full moon in Cancer, which would, I think, be in Capricorn at the time. So, yeah, the July and August, obviously, are the most powerful months when it comes to the weather. This is why, like, the heat of the summer and everybody gets all hot, especially in the northern hemisphere and whatnot. Those are very, very powerful. It's very, you got to be very careful during those periods of time. But otherwise, yeah, that's all I really wanted to share. Leos, I love you. Keep being you. Maybe drop the ego a little bit, but just keep being you. Everybody loves you. Stop worrying about if everybody loves you or not. Of course everybody loves you. You're a Leo. Duh. Okay, we'll go on to the next one. Virgo. Oh my goodness. What could I say about Virgo? Well, you're literally the shit. And I mean that in multiple ways. Virgo, you are the virgin. You're the woman. You're actually the only woman of the entire zodiac, which is why Virgo, being an earth sign, is ruled by a feminine aspect. By the way, fire and air signs are considered masculine. Water and earth signs are considered feminine, just so everybody knows. Virgo, you're mostly born between August 21st and September 21st, and you are a mutable earth sign. Destruction of earth. What does that sound like? That sounds like the bowels. That's correct. It governs the sympathetic nervous system and the lower digestive system. So whereas actually Virgo's not just the lower digestive system. I would say it's more the upper digestive system. But Libra also governs the lower digestive system as well. Now, the reason for this is because Virgo is the largest of all of the constellations in the sky. It is the largest one. It's bigger than Taurus. It's bigger than Leo. It's bigger than all of them. And the reason for that is because there's a wide variety of Virgos, more so than any other energy in the entire zodiacal sphere. I have met many Virgos. They've all been completely different. They are probably the hardest sign, or one of the hardest signs to peg. They also are ruled by their planets. It's actually just Mercury as the planet. However, unlike any other sign, Virgo is ruled by Chiron and the asteroid belts. Now, why is that important? Because the asteroid belts in our grand cosmological solar system represents the crown of thorns of Jesus Christ. It represents the destroyed aspect, the destroyed planet, which is why Virgo rules the solar plexus, where the Christ seed of the sacred secretion process is born. And that is why Virgo is the virgin. It is the only woman of the zodiac because it is where the baby is born in our bodies. So the asteroid belt, which is a destroyed planet, is like the sacrificial element of the Christ. And this is also why they do weird things like why 9/11 was done when it was, because it's a destructive element. So Virgos are normally known as being very clever, analytical, reliable, and modest, but they can be perfectionists, judgmental, critical, or demanding. And I have known a lot of Virgos to be those things. Now, I have the other stuff there as well. I find it funny that their true gemstone is various kinds of flint, just like poop, haha, very funny. But that's what Virgos do. They're literally they go around and they say, no, you're garbage, you're trash. Like, they're very good at being able to decipher good from bad. They're one of the better signs in that. They represent the snake. in the Chinese zodiac, or the serpent, because it is the baby version of the Leo. A lot of the time, Virgo and Leo is actually quite similar, except that Virgo is a much more down-to-earth version of Leo. They're a lot more logical. They're a lot less fiery and kind of have their head in the clouds. They also kind of are somewhat full of themselves a lot of the time, so keep that in mind as well. But they also represent angels, virgins, etc., as their kind of key figure here. So, let's take a look at the sigil of Virgo, which is this M shape. Now, why is this weird M shape, and why does Scorpio also have the same thing? Well, I'm going to get into the Scorpio one later. But the M shape on Virgo is actually a reference to maternal, as in motherly or something along those lines. And it has this little kind of like, this little flip. You know, it has like kind of this little flippy duality thing at the end of its M. This is the return. This is like an asteroid coming and passing by the Earth and then leaving, and then it's going to come back around, because this is where, again, the Christ seed is born. So the M in Virgo and the M in Scorpio represent hidden key secrets, hidden attributes of our divine human existence. And the M of Virgo specifically is the looped reference of the Christ seed that is born within the manger. Now, as we can see in the faces of Virgo, they have a very sleek face. Again, very earthly elements, so they're going to have very nice hair. They're going to have very deep, a lot of the time darker eyes or darker eyebrows and things of that nature. They kind of look a little Taurus-y, but not really too much. But what I will tell you is that they do have, again, the Mercury eyes. Just like with Geminis, they have the Mercury eyes, where the two eyes will go in different directions, or there'll be different sizes, or what have you. A lot of people who have Virgo and Gemini energy have these Mercury eyes. And they're also very sleek, especially the women. Virgo is much more feminine sign, so the women Virgos oftentimes, just like Taurian women, often have pretty nice figures. They have hourglass figures. They're very naturally beautiful. I do know that a lot of Virgo women, if you get them at certain parts of their life, they can even be quite, I guess feministy in a sense, where they just won't shave stuff. They are very earthy. They don't care about having to be perfectionists for people who they don't deem worthy. So they're perfectionists in their own mind, which I respect. It's whatever they want to do. But I also find that a lot of Virgo women are also OCD and super anal, no pun intended. They're super anal. They want to make sure that everything is plucked, everything, all the makeup is perfect and everything else. Like, they can be super hyper perfectionists too. So it's kind of a weird juxtaposed duality. And again, this kind of plays into the entire thing of the good and bad of each zodiacal sign. So the good is that they're very analytical, they're very down to earth, they're very grounded, very logical, very good with money, all of those things. However, what they're not good at is self-reflection. A lot of the time, I feel like a lot of Virgos don't take 10 seconds to try to basically look at themselves and say, is this really, like, they don't hypercritical analyze themselves after a certain point. They do in the beginning, but once they get an idea of what they believe is perfect, they don't look at themselves enough. And they're not judging themselves harshly enough. And I think that kind of coincides with the sacred secretion process. This is where the Christ seed is born. And this is also where that energy is going to maximize its potential. So if you're not paying attention to those things, then the Christ seed dies. And then as a Virgo, you would die as well. You kind of get some of that, dragon is a Leo, serpent is a Virgo, supernova effect from the Leos. You kind of get that, like, oh man, I'm just going to be a copycat of the Leos and try to be super unique, and then they blow up on themselves. And the other thing about Virgos too is that they can be very much like Libras as well, because they're such a large sign. Their sign bleeds into both Leo and Libra. In fact, poor little Libra is pretty much almost entirely occupied by half of Virgo. So this is why Libra's so goddamn indecisive a lot of the time. But we're going to get into Libra right about now. But the way I want to end on Virgo is this. You guys are beautiful. Stop being so damn critical and judgmental, and just learn to love the present moment. And also, a lot of Virgos too. Food is a really big thing with Virgos and Libras too. But Virgos, for whatever, they either don't eat enough, or they eat too much, or they eat the wrong things. Like, watch what you eat, because what you're putting into your body is going to be what kind of drives you as a Virgo with that energy in those stomach kind of areas in the digestive tract. Let us move on to Libra, my favorite indecisive little bastards. You guys are the best. Or maybe you're not. I don't know. You're the one who's going to tip the scales, not me, so don't look at me. Okay? Libras, you're amazing. You guys are incredible. You're literally a breath of fresh air to be around. You are so calm, so cooling, so relaxing. The only thing that people don't like about you is that you sometimes are way too indecisive, but that's okay. Okay, so Libra rules from September 21st to October 21st. It's a cardinal air sign, so it's an air sign that wants to go. It's a really good for acting, because they want to actually get up, and they don't want to have like the same kind of things as Gemini. They really just want to get the job done in a lot of senses. But the problem with Libra is that a lot of the time they can feel stuck. They can feel like they're not weighing or tipping the scales enough in their favor. A lot of the times in the Egyptian mythology, it was associated with Anubis, who would tip the scales, or Lady Justice, or what have you, and the scales itself is actually what they represent. In the Chinese zodiac, it's the horse, because the horse is a very stable animal, but the horse isn't really free. The horse is kind of contained. It's kind of one of those animals that's either very free and it's running around in the wild, or it's kind of a captive to humans, and it's used as kind of like a workhorse in a sense. So it's up to each Libra to choose what balance they want to find in that regard, because to some degree you do have to be a workhorse, but to some degree you have to be free, and Libras are very good at that. Libras are wonderful actually with balance. They're ruled by Venus, so a lot of the time Libras are big eaters. They love to eat. They love to just chip away at enjoying the luxuries of life, and a lot of the time that can catch up to them. Some Libras can even be addicts of some kind, because they don't have that balance. And if you're a Libra and you reject balance just entirely, like, you're gonna have a very tough time living. When we're looking for Libra, we're looking for a very small constellation. I didn't really cover this with Virgo, but because Virgo is just so damn big, but it's kind of hard to see Virgo too. Libra is just so small, and it's kind of so shy, and it's very difficult to see it in the sky. So if you can try to find it, then great. One of the bigger stars of Libra is actually Spica. It's a really, really lucky star. So there's actually a lot of stars that are associated with Libra, like Methuselah. Methuselah is another great star that I don't have on this list. But Libra is ruled by Venus, which is a very feeling type of planet. It's very sensual. It rules the kidneys, the lower backs, the adrenal glands, and I also say parts of the lower digestive tract and upper digestive tract. The digestive tract between Virgo and Libra is probably the most complicated set of organs that we have in our lower body. I would argue it is the most complicated. The way that it works, the way that it releases chemicals and everything, it's absolutely insane. So I don't blame Libras for being indecisive. They got a lot of shit going on in their head, and I love them for it, right? So when we take a look at Libras, which again are these balancing people, we got Hugh Jackman and Wednesday girl, whatever her name is, something. So she's cool. She's very pretty, obviously. Hugh Jackman, split the face down the line. This man's face is practically the exact same. And not only that, but the eyes almost look kind of like these dishes. They almost look like for both of them, they look like these dishes in the Justice sigil, right? Because Libras have the most beautiful, balanced faces. In fact, their bodies are very proportionally balanced. They very rarely have irregular balance in their structures, whether it's facial or bodily. They're split right down the middle, almost perfectly, better than any other sign. And in fact, Libras are considered one of the most attractive signs, not just because it's next to Scorpio, but because they have this beautiful variety of just duality. Where it's like they don't have those Mercury eyes like the Geminis and Virgos do. They don't have the big round faces like Cancers do. They don't have the big hair like Leos do, or the big necks or anything. They're just normal. Like, they look so epitomize to what a normal human being would be. And I keep using air quotes when I'm saying normal. I know you guys can't see that, but that's basically where my mind goes when I think of Libra. They're very beautiful, not just in their outward appearance, but in their inward appearance as well. The thing you need to be very careful of with Libra is the fact that they sometimes will stagnate in life so hard that they don't do anything. They get very little done. Libra is the setting sun. Libra is where the sun sets. It is completely opposite of Aries. So just like with Aries, we have to think of how this impacts us on a macro level, right? So Aries is the beginner, Libra is the finisher, okay? And they're both cardinal signs. So in the Egyptian mythology, Libra is actually ruled by Set, which is Horus's counterpart, Horus being represented by Aries. Libra would represent Set, sunset. So this is the setting sun. This is actually where things are balanced. This is where things begin the trek of where they go to die. In fact, Set is more so ruled by Scorpio, which would be like Judas and the whole 12 apostles thing. But Libra is the beginning of that downfall, right? And in fact, what is we got the blind lady of Justice over here because Justice is blind, and what does Set do? He takes out one of Horus's eyes. So that's like this big kind of thing with Libras where like they can even blind themselves because they don't know what the hell they're doing. So I love Libras a lot. Just as a final end note, love them a lot. They are phenomenal people to be around. As a Libra yourself, you actually have to be very careful that you have balance in your life. If you don't, then your life is going to be very difficult. Oh boy, here we go. Scorpio. Yes, you're basically like a Leo, except sexier. We all know. Everybody wants to have sex with you. Everybody loves you. Yes, we get it. Okay, you guys are great. Can we just skip this one? Moving on? No, I'm just joking. I love Scorpios. In fact, I'm in a relationship with a Scorpio. So, Scorpios are phenomenal people. They're extremely loyal. A lot of the time they get a very bad rap, but they're definitely not my least favorite sign of the zodiac for sure, at all. I think that a lot of Scorpios are probably the most misunderstood of the signs, and I think a lot of that is because they think with their genitals. That's right, I said it. You Scorpios, you think way too much with your dicks and your vaginas. Okay, Scorpio, October 21st, November 21st. They are fixed water. They do not give a fuck. You cannot make a Scorpio care about something unless they want to care. Okay, which is oddly weird because they are a water sign, but that's just not how it works with Scorpio. Scorpio does not care. They don't care. They don't care. You want to throw shade at them, you want to be mean to them, they will put a hex on you and you will die. All right. They are mainly ruled by the two planets Pluto and Mars. Mainly Pluto. A lot of people believe that Scorpio is associated with Mars. It's not. I highly believe that Scorpio is mainly ruled by Pluto because Pluto is a planet of rebirth. Pluto actually is near what's called the Kuiper asteroid belt, and it in fact goes outside of that asteroid belt every so often, where it gets bombarded by asteroids, but it does not die. Pluto does not die. And I don't care what people say. Pluto's a planet. Fuck you. I don't give a shit. I'm bringing out that Scorpio energy. Fuck you. It's a planet. I don't want to hear it. Pluto is very intense. Mars is very intense. So both of these planets that rule Scorpio are extremely intense, which makes Scorpios extremely intense. Scorpio governs the reproductive, urinary, and some of the excretory organs. I think that the excretory organs are also ruled in part by other signs such as Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sag, and Capricorn and Aquarius actually all could probably fall into that realm because, of course, what we're excreting is based off of what we're putting in. And everything from Virgo, Libra, all the way to the end of Pisces, these are the fall and winter signs, right? So literally the fall, like the fall of mankind, the fall of the light. But that's just as important as the creation of the light in and of itself. It's a duality. And so whereas all of the earlier signs that we've done in this this little lecture have been all about creation and blah, 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 a lot of those signs can be very naive. Whereas once you get to like the Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, these signs see right through the bullshit. They see right through all the crap. They don't care. They work and they dig in those trenches, like they're down in the midst of it all. Very, very difficult to try to trick a Scorpio. Scorpios are probably one of the best signs at not being lied to or tricked because they are good at lying themselves. Scorpios are determined, passionate, observant, intuitive, but they can be suspicious, jealous, possessive, obsessive, manipulative, and vengeful. Revenge is a big thing for them, right? So Scorpio rules basically that genital region. So Scorpio is actually considered the sexiest or the most attractive of all the signs, which is actually a very nice compliment. But a lot of the time, Scorpios are very, very sexual. They actually can use sex to heal. They are the greatest healers when it comes to sex. They can also use sex as a very destructive element. Either way, in the Chinese zodiac, they are representative by the goat, but more so than that, before Scorpio was associated with the scorpion, it was actually associated with a phoenix and an eagle. And the reason for that was because it was a high flyer, right? Scorpios are adrenaline junkies. They love to live on the edge. They love excitement. They love thrill, spontaneity to some degree. Sagittarius, which is going to come next, is a much more spontaneous sign. But Scorpios do like that spontaneity. But the Phoenix, again, is the death, right? It's this birth. It's rebirth. It's this plant. It's this animal that represents the death and rebirth, rising from the ashes. That's exactly what happens with our genital organs, right? We can pound the crap out of them, but eventually we're going to want to do it again. And that's why Scorpio represents that lower aspect. Now, Scorpio and Sagittarius actually share this very important part of the story in the zodiac, where basically the stinger of Scorpio and the arrow of Sagittarius meet at the crux of what is the center of the galaxy. So basically the center of the galaxy, and a lot of the times it's associated with like a baby or a child, and the evil scorpion, which is Judas, and the evil horseman, which is Sagittarius, are there trying to end its life so that the aspect of creation is ended, and there's no perpetuity. So it basically is the end of an infinite cycle. However, there's beauty in that, because then if things aren't infinite anymore, then there's death. And this is why Scorpio is associated with Pluto, which is a planet of death, right? So there's a lot of esotericism behind this, and if we look at the sigil of the M of Scorpio, now if you recall, when in Virgo I said that the M of Virgo represents the maternal M is the 13th letter of the English alphabet. 13 is a number of completion. So why does Virgo and Scorpio, why are they the only two that have this sigil of this M, and that's because the M represents the maternal, right? So both Virgo and Scorpio are maternal signs. So it's M as in ma as in mother. But Scorpio, unlike Virgo, has this little tail, and that actually is where this is like the representative of the beak or the talon or the stinger of Scorpio. They are very good at revenge. They will get you back if you hurt them, so don't hurt them because they will get you back. One way or another. But basically the point I'm getting at is this energy is super important when in regards to basically just how the cycles of creation occur. Something has to happen to initiate the fall. Something has to happen to initiate the rebirth. And if there is no rebirth, then things stagnate, and when they die, there is no rebirth. Right? If there's no villain to overcome and conquer, then the good guys will never get off the couch and stop smoking their pot and actually go beat the crap out of the villain, right? So this is what that kind of represents, and this is why I think Scorpios get a very bad rap. But in fact, the odd thing about Scorpio is that they are the most loyal of all the signs, or one of the most loyal, next to Taurus. Both of these signs, Scorpio and Taurus, are very, very, very loyal. So you can say what you want about Scorpio, but they're very emotional when they want to be. They can get down on your level. They're very intuitive. I would not say that being extremely intelligent is associated with Scorpionic energy. However, it can be. It depends on if the Scorpio is willing to commit to learning things and not, kill themselves, because a lot of Scorpios do that. When we look at Scorpios, Emma Stone, Ryan Gosling. I think I got those right. This one, this guy, look, he's got like the fluffed hair of an eagle. He's got that big, strong jawline, the big, strong nose, because a lot of the time the Scorpios are said to have beaks. Okay, so they're said to have these beaks. This one, the girl doesn't really have it as well, but she's got these big, these sexy eyes. She's like, oh, I'm gonna, flag you down and I'm gonna come after you. They have these eyes that just tell you like, hey, you better be ready because I'm coming. And they got these very, very handsome and beautiful facial features, voluptuous bodies on both, both the females and very good bodies on the males as well. So basically, a lot of the time, these are very, very attractive people, and they have a very attractive energy. So I would say that Scorpios, you guys need to chill a little bit, but once you learn how to chill, everything else in your life kind of falls into place because people want to do stuff for you because you're hot. So yeah, keep that in mind. And also, the Scorpion constellation is like this little hook, just like that. Okay. Sagittarius. Oh boy, here we go. The funny man, the funny woman, the jokester, the clown. You're a clown and you know it. You jump around like a monkey. Actually, that's exactly why the Chinese Zodiac put you as a monkey, because you are the funniest sign of the Zodiac. In fact, you are the comedians. Yes, that is correct. November 21st to December 21st, mutable fire. Mutable fire is in destructive fire, as in Sagittarians take their arrow, which is literally the epitome of what their sigil is, and they shoot it, and they shoot all their arrows because they are the king. Finally, the first planet that we get to see ruled by the planet Jupiter. Jupiter is, of course, the king. It's the sun planet that is outside of our first asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Jupiter is the protector. It protects all the other internal planets from getting devastated and bombarded from asteroids. And Sagittarius rules the liver, the thighs, the hips, and the pelvis. Rules the liver because the liver is a kingly organ. It's situated towards the top of the body here. I probably should have outlined it, but it's a lesser kind of ruling, but it still is ruled mainly by the planet Jupiter, and it produces a lot of blood and plasma. Sagittarians are very fun to be around. They're actually probably the most adventurous sign. They're enthusiastic, versatile, independent, philosophical, but they can be extremely careless, tactless, irresponsible, inconsistent, cocky, arrogant. They can sometimes think that they're the bee's knees. I should know. My ascendant sign is Sagittarius. Actually, specifically, my ascendant sign is Ophiuchus. I am degree 21, I believe, of Sagittarius on my ascendant. And Ophiuchus is a very powerful sign. It's actually one of the more powerful aspects of Sagittarius. Ophiuchus represents this snake charmer, right? So you have Sagittarians, which a lot of the time are just like half horse, half humans, which is supposed to be a lower carnal aspect, just shooting their arrows in a negative sense. But the positive aspect of Sagittarius is the snake charmer, the philosophical individual who goes out, adventures, finds different experiences through different means, tames the serpent, tames the beast. This is, of course, placating into the center of the galaxy, right? And then overcomes those lower incarnations. Sagittarians are known as being somewhat manipulative, but not like water signs manipulative. They're more like they're big cheaters. Scorpio, Sagittarius are probably, and Gemini are probably the big cheaters of the zodiac, if there were any energies that would represent that. And their cell salt's silica, and their other animals include like the horseman, like I said, the centaur, the monkey, or Ophiuchus. And mainly with Sagittarians, they rule the hips. In fact, the medical term for this is the sagittal region. So sagittal nerves, sagittal arteries, etc. So yeah, the medical industry takes completely from the zodiac. But if we take a look at these people, I think this is Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise or one of them, and then this is Taylor Swift. So Sagittarians have these big bright eyes. They have very nice hair, very similar to Scorpios. They don't have a lot of the same sharp features, facial features, or bodily features, but they're very attractive people. A lot of the time, they're quite tall, or they're on the taller side of the spectrum because they have those hip rulerships. Or, in the case of Danny DeVito, if I believe correctly, he's also a Sagittarius. You could be extra short. So again, it's a duality. It's either one or the other. Sagittarians are a love to be around. They are amazing people. Ophiuchus itself represents that 13th zodiacal sign, the 13th element, the element of the Christ, because if there's any zodiacal sign that would represent Christ, it would probably be Ophiuchus. He is the snake charmer. The snake charmer, the serpent, of course, being like that lower god, the demiurge, El Shaitan, Satan, the Luciferian aspect of the duality, which represents the negative light bringer, the one that is trying to defeat the demiurge but is doing it through negative means, whereas Christ comes in the positive means and defeats the demiurge in a sense. So that is mainly the biggest aspect with Ophiuchus. So if you have that energy, great. If you don't, it's fine. Sagittarians can actually just play into that Ophiuchus energy whenever they want, but it's their choice. And the problem with Sagittarians is they can sometimes miss and fire lots of arrows. In fact, to sin in Greek means to miss the mark, as probably a lot of you already know. So when a Sagittarius is not firing their arrows properly, they're sinning. They're missing the mark. They're losing in their battle. And that's basically my little spiel on Sagittarius. I love you guys. You're very funny. You're a love to be around. Just remember why you're here, and don't be too rough with other people. Don't be speaking your mind when you don't need to hurt other people's feelings. And also, just don't cheat on your partner, because a lot of Sagittarius they have that kind of energy. No offense, but that's just from my experience. Okay, here we go. All right, everybody knew it had to happen eventually. I had to talk about you people. The unemotional, unfeeling, hardworking, such a sacrifice, weird goat people, the Capricorn. I'm just joking. Or am I? No, I'm not joking. You guys are probably one of my least favorite signs, but I love you anyway. Capricorn. Okay, let's get into Capricorn. Why do I like Capricorn? Why do I dislike Capricorn? Capricorn is born December 21st, January 21st. They are cardinal Earth, so they are very, again, cardinal, one direction, one track mind. They get the job done. They're very good with money. A lot of CEOs and C-level executives are Capricorns in a lot of different industries, especially in like banking and stuff. Their ruling planet is Saturn. If you're looking for their astrological map, it looks like a big kind of V or triangular shaped kind of looking thing. And they rule the skeletal structure, the bones, joints, knees, and teeth, the framework of the body, essentially, and the spleen. So really, they're like the outer skin. And of course, the outer skin really only gets penetrated if you like really try super hard. But otherwise, it's like, there's plenty of things that are trying to get in, and they don't, because Capricorn doesn't let anybody in. So Capricorn is a very intense sign, and I actually love them very much as a Cancer myself. It's just that I feel as though one of their big things is that they complain all the time, and the reason that they complain is because they just don't understand emotions. And I think that that's probably the only thing that Capricorns need to actually understand. Like, you are very unemotional creatures, and if you just learned to interpret emotions a little bit better, you'd have much more balance in your life, and you'd be able to find those things that really meant the most importance to you, rather than working and slaving away and killing yourself all day. And I say that out of love, not out of spite. I've never really been wronged by a Capricorn necessarily. Actually, I know that's a lie. I have, but when I have been wronged, it's been because I thought that they cared about me, but they clearly didn't. So Capricorn, very ambitious, resourceful, patient, and responsible people, but they can be distrusting, pessimistic, materialistic, emotionally detached, or basically stubborn. I wouldn't even put egotistical on this list. I kind of got this list from just like typing stuff up really late at night. But basically what I would say about Capricorn is they have a tendency to not understand themselves. And I think that's probably the biggest thing. In the Chinese zodiac, they're the rooster, but in the Western, they're the sea goat. Why? Because these animals look weird. Okay, like that's why. It's because the rooster is they're the hardest working animal. They wake up earlier than anybody else. They greet the morning sun, but it's ruled by Saturn. So why would the rooster be associated with Saturn when Saturn is pretty much the planet that is the complete opposite of the sun? Well, that's because Saturn is not necessarily a bad planet. It's a planet which rules, a lot of our time signatures, a lot of the way that we work, a lot of the way that we're disciplined, right? But there is a lot of hidden attributes of Saturn, not just in other people's religions, but also just in general. But there's also an aspect of this duality of Capricorns, and actually, this is why they, of any other astrological symbol, they have the weirdest symbol. It's not dual. It can't be cut in half like many of the other ones. It can't. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense. That's because Capricorn has basically one very powerful spot in the sky, and that sky is over the star Vega, which is where we put Christmas. Vega is a star which is associated with the spleen. Vega is one of the most important stars in the sky. It's actually the star which represents humanity, and Capricorn represents sacrifice. So we actually have a big story in our astrological sky of how this Capricornian element, this sacrificial element, these guys are the ones that work hard and they put their heads down and they don't complain. And when they complain, it's because they feel like they're not getting paid enough. I mean, legitimately, this is like they feel like they're not getting enough out of what they, give to the table. And you know what? Capricorns give a ton to the table. They probably are bigger providers than most of the other signs on this list. And that's a great thing. But the thing that Capricorn doesn't realize a lot of the time is that emotional balance. This is the same that goes into Cancers, right? Cancer is the opposite sign of Capricorn. Cancer covers the emotional spectrum very, very well, but a lot of Cancers are lazy. They don't want to actually do the work. They want to sit around, they want to eat food, they want to judge other people, whatever. Capricorns, on the other hand, don't care to sit around and judge people. They're not low level bullcrap like that. Okay, they want to get the job done. They want to work through all their problems. They don't want to hear complaints. And if they want to hear complaints, they want to hear themselves complaining. They don't want to listen to you complain. Okay, they don't care about your emotional baggage. They just want to get whatever it is that they feel that they need to get done. They want to buy a house. They want to have the normal good life, and they want to work. Okay, they are a sacrificial element. They're not they're not really like the sign that's associated with like love and feelings and anything like that. They want to get the job done. They want to build the house. They want to conquer something. They want to do something. It's a very Saturnian element, right? But what I would say about Capricorn is they have basically this duality, right? So even in this picture here, you have like the goat who's standing on top and he's welcoming the sun. Like the Capricorn that can actually overcome its Saturnian aspects, its lower, like Saturn's a very far away planet, so they're very disconnected people. But if they can connect with themselves and other people, then they actually are like a shining sun. But the thing is that most of them will end up like this little old man here in this little dark cave where he's kind of like Father Time, and he's just kind of like alone, almost by himself. Like everybody else here is like, yay for the Capricorn at the top. He climbed the mountain just like a sea goat would. Like this mermaid type of little aspect here. He's like half earth, half water. It's like, what is it? Because they're very good with money. They're very good at hard working. But if you get the right Capricornian energy, then it's actually associated with that Vega star. And that Vega star is associated with the spleen in the body. And the spleen is a very earthly and watery element. So Capricorn actually rules the spleen. But does anybody know about the spleen? Does anybody talk about the spleen? I do, but not a lot of other people do. So Capricorns, I would say, are probably, next to Scorpio, one of the most misunderstood signs. But that's okay, because Capricorn, you guys are great. You make the sacrifice. That's what you are. You literally are half goat, half fish. So it's like you make a ton of sacrifices in multiple different ways, and you're very appreciated. So I am joking a lot of the time, but Capricorns, the biggest thing for them is hair. I've seen so many nice hairstyles. I have no idea who these two people are. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know who either of these actors are, but what I did notice was the hair. Look at that hair. Look at all that beautiful hair. The beautiful hair here. They have these it's just always so nice. Well, you guys have the nicest friggin' hair. The other thing too about Capricorns that are really obvious, they have little snub noses. They have these little noses which are like very snub-like. They're a little bulbous. They're a little rounder than other people's noses. And it's got this very interesting feature. They have nice teeth a lot of the time. They have very nice teeth. They rule the teeth. Specifically, not the mouth or the mouth structure, but the teeth itself. And then, of course, Capricorns being an earth sign, they can also have pretty nice bodies depending on, how well they do or how hard they work, which isn't really a hard thing for Capricorn. It's just, Capricorn, make sure you take the time to ask yourself, truly, do I love myself? Do I want to buy a house? Do I want to buy a car? Do I want to show off all these flashy things? Or do I want something more? Do I want a partner? Do I want a family? Get down to the nitty-gritty of what you really want and then pursue it before you just kind of listen to what anybody tells you. Because in that sense, you will be a sacrifice. In that sense, you will be the rooster who's just sitting there waiting for the farmer to wake up every single sunrise, and then you get your chicken feed, and then you go to bed, and it's the same monotony every single day. And that's what I feel like I find with a lot of Capricorns. They're very depressed. They hide it, but they want to be around people. They love people who love them. They love people who they want to be around, but they just don't like a lot of people. So that's all I have to say about Capricorn. All right, moving on to Aquarius. We have Aquarius, January 21st to February 21st, fixed air. Aquarians, I can't even insult you because you're not even paying attention right now. You guys are like so far out in left field. You're in La La Land doing whatever the hell you're doing up in space. I don't know, but like come down to Earth for just a little bit so I can insult you, just a little tiny bit. Aquarians are lovely people. Aquarians, you guys are just lovely to be around. You're very fun. You're very imaginative, right? And that's mainly because your main ruling planet is Uranus. Not Saturn. I think that Saturn is a secondary planet for you guys, but I think Uranus is the main ruling planet of Aquarius. They're very like loving people, but they're also very whimsical. Like a lot of the time, I feel like I can never place any sort of a label on an Aquarius because they don't want labels. They are like the most unique sign out of any of the other signs in the entire zodiac. They rule the circulatory system, the transport of water in the body, lower legs, ankles, and the wrists of the arms as well. They're like connectors, right? So they're very unique. There's nothing really like the shins, in the human body. They're really like their own people. They're very humanitarian. They're clever. They're inventive. They're creative. But they can be stubborn. Unpredictable, rebellious, aloof. Aloof is the big one. Like, they're just not paying any attention to anything that you're saying. They can seem unemotional, but I actually feel like I'm pretty good at getting emotions out of Aquarians because you just have to know how to talk to them. And sometimes they can be contradictory, too. Sometimes they can flip-flop and be wishy-washy because they are, even though they're an air sign, they're a fixed air sign. So what happens if you have air that stagnates? Well, eventually, if air stagnates in one area, it condenses, right? Condensation, it becomes watery. So Aquarians are kind of this like water-air mix. We're kind of similar to Scorpio. Scorpios are also kind of a water-air mix as well. So they get along actually pretty good, except for a lot of the times Aquarians can feel like Scorpios are attacking them. But either way, Aquarius is a really great sign. I feel as though most Aquarians are misunderstood just as much as Capricorns and Scorpios, but I don't think that they are judged as harshly or even care to be judged as harshly as the other signs do. Aquarius just don't care. They just want to be themselves, right? They have Deneb Algeti and Oculus. Draco actually goes from Capricorn and Aquarius, and Draco is associated very heavily with some very negative energy, but that's mainly because of the fact that Saturn is one of the bigger rulers of Aquarius and Capricorn. But Saturn's not a bad planet. It's just that Saturn is a very misunderstood planet, and none of the planets are bad, even though Saturn a lot of the time is considered a malefic planet, which is pretty bad just by the word. But that's actually not the case. The reality of it is that they're just misunderstood because their qualities and what they want in life is not really aligned with other people's. Capricorn and Aquarius both are the only two signs that are ruled by Saturn, but Saturn is so powerful, it's actually basically a unity. It's in a lower sense a unified planet, whereas the opposite of Capricorn and Aquarius would be Cancer and Leo. Cancer and Leo are split between the sun and the moon. So closer aspects to us, which are very powerful, are split into duality. Further away aspects like Saturn is a unity of a sense. However, Capricorn and Aquarius both are very misunderstood signs, probably more so than any other sign on the list. And I would throw Scorpio in there as well, because Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. Right? And then Pisces is a little less than that, but Pisces has Jupiter to back it up. Saturn's a very misunderstood planet, and a lot of the time Capricorns just want to work, so they feel like they're misunderstood in that sense. But Aquarians, they just are dreamy people. They're really imaginative, right? And they want to be like unique. They want to be people. A lot of people say that Aquarians are like the most human of any sort of person on this list. But on the flip side of it, they are also said to be the least human, almost as if they're from space. Like they're not human at all. So it's this weird duality, and a lot of Aquarians find difficulty in balancing that. If you look at their constellation, it's a very complicated constellation. It's actually very quiet, I would say, constellation. It's not as prominent as other ones, but you can still kind of see how they saw the flowing water. It's a very large constellation as well, and it's one of the only constellations that actually dips really low down below the equatorial horizon, which I thought is very interesting because kind of explains why Aquarians are like so woohoo, like I'm whatever I want to be. Now, in the Chinese zodiac, they're the dog. So the dog, of course, being a very loving animal that kind of every person likes. That's basically what Aquarius is. A lot of people who are Aquarians they're not disliked. Unlike Capricorn or Scorpio, a lot of people butt heads with Capricorn and Scorpio. Aquarius is not like that. Aquarians, they love to be people pleasers, so they'll basically do or say a lot of different things to get people not to like them, but to get people to understand who they are, and that confidence is what people like about Aquarians. Again, I don't know who this guy is. I know that he played Loki in the Marvel movies, Tom something, and then this is Jennifer Aniston, I think. I almost said Jennifer Gardner. But fortunately, my mom watched a lot of Friends when I was younger. Okay, so as you can see, they have very, very plain features. They have like Libra. Them and Libra are the most people of the zodiac. They're both air signs. They have very symmetrical faces, very thin bodies a lot of the time. They're quite thin and in their energies, and a lot of times people can say they're like maybe even a little annoying. I don't think that's the case. I think that they're just very quirky. But they have these very pretty, natural features. Eyes. Aquarians are known for having very beautiful eyes, especially if they have blue eyes. They're known for having these eyes that really pop, kind of like the blue of Uranus. And I put a picture here of the Grand Man of the Zohar, which is drawn by John Augustus Knapp, because Aquarius is the old man of the zodiac. It's literally if Aries is the child, Aquarius is the old man. And it is oftentimes considered one of the longest living signs, as well as one of the wisest in old age. In youth, it's actually not considered extremely wise. It's actually considered one of the longest living signs that eventually passes down wisdom like the flowing rivers from heaven. Right, and in fact, the hour of Aquarius is what's considered the devil's hour. It's between 2 and 4 in the morning, and that is right around 3 a.m. That is right around where we have that whole thing called the devil's hour, which is pretty important in a lot of ways, because that is where a lot of portals open up to restart the day. So the secrets of the rebirth are hidden between Aquarius and Aries, and it starts with Aquarius. But I love you guys. I love you, Aquarians. Don't worry too much about what other people think of you, because nobody cares, especially you guys. You guys don't care. But I will say that the best thing I think an Aquarius needs to work on is reading the room and following what other people are saying. And then trying to play into whatever the conversation is rather than being off in their own little world. That I think pisses people off, but that's okay. I love you guys either way. Okay, last but not least, I know you wanted to hide, you poor little martyr, you wanted to be the sacrifice. Pisces. Oh, Pisces. oh, everybody is so sad for the Pisces. Everybody cry. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Put them on a pedestal. I'm just joking. I love you, Pisces. February 21st to March 21st, mutable water, destructive water, cleansing water, dreamy. Dreamy is the word that comes to mind when people talk Pisces, okay? Pisces, pie. Pie as in pig, which is the Chinese zodiac. Pie as in pesci or pishi, which is fish in Latin or Roman or Greek, one of those. So we get pi, like, 3.14. This is in relation to the pineal gland. It's in relation to circular motions. It's in relation to the Neptunian hidden aspects, the Jupiterian, the kingly. Neptune is a very feminine planet. Jupiter is a very masculine planet. So it's a duality of sorts. But there is a lot to say about Pisces. Pisces represent all of the previous 11 signs compact into one sign, which is really interesting because that's why they're the feet. Because actually all the nerves of the body run all the way down to the feet, and you can actually fix the body going from the bottom up by fixating on the feet. And there's like a whole line of like medical industry type stuff when it comes to that, right? Like there's a lot of like acupunctural stuff, right? But Pisces also rules the pineal gland. Now you might be wondering, how is it that the one that rules the feet rules something that's all the way up in the head? Well, it's because when you are an embryo, before you become a blastocyst and you get implanted in your mother's womb, the head and the feet are touching, and the pineal gland is actually in the part, which is probably one of the first things that gets formed alongside the heart, and the thymus gland and a couple of other things. The pineal gland is actually in this realm of Pisces before it splits off and goes into the head when our eggshell is deteriorated and we implant into our mother's womb. So it's very interesting stuff. Now, Pisces rules the immune system, the feet, and the pineal gland. As I said, they're very imaginative, creative, compassionate, and selfless, but they can be escapist, lazy, pessimistic, sensitive, self-pitying, weak-willed, and martyrdom, like, oh, poor me, boo-hoo me, everything sucks, it's all my fault, blah, blah, blah. I know because I have a ton of Pisces in my family. I love them to death, but, a lot of the time they can be like, why me? Why me? Yeah, okay. It's not just you. It's everybody, all right? So the pig is oftentimes associated with Pisces in the Chinese zodiac because it's the lowest of the 12. However, everybody eats pigs, right? In China specifically, pigs are actually the most eaten meat. It's not chicken, it's not beef either. So it's not Capricorn for the Chinese zodiac, and it's not Taurus for the Chinese zodiac. It's Pisces. It's the fish. It's the pig. It's literally everybody eats it. Everybody in China eats it. Everybody in Greece ate fish. The Mediterranean. They ate a lot of fish. So it's a very common sign. If you look at the sign for Pisces, it's one of the car logos. I can't really remember. I think this is Honda. I can't remember. Doesn't matter. They stole that too from the zodiac. If you're looking for the constellation, that one's actually for Pisces pretty easy. You can see the two fish as they're kind of diverging off. But Pisces represents that like element of refurbishing, fixing, washing away the waters of uncertainty. That, again, bringing it all the way back, Cetus. Cetus is that dark depth, watery serpent dragon, which, is at the very depths of the dream-like realm of the astral plane. It's at the depths, right, at the very pit. And it is the conquering of that between Pisces, which is that very loving feminine and masculine balance, as well as Aries, like that dominating masculine balance, which ultimately is what creates Pisces as this beautiful caricature of all the other zodiacal signs. So Pisces, just like the pineal gland being probably the most prominent gland in the whole brain, it's all about Pisces being able to recognize that. Pisces basically get along with everybody. I think they get along probably the least with Sagittarians because they butt heads a good bit. They probably wouldn't get along with some other signs too, but what I'll tell you about Pisces is that they're very intuitive. They understand things to a very deep degree, and they're very intelligent. And a lot of people, I think, they misunderstand Pisces. Maybe misunderstand is the wrong word. They they don't believe that Pisces can actually do it. A lot of people look at Pisces and they think that they're weak. They're not. They are actually very, very strong. They just have to recognize it within themselves. When we look at people, I got the James Bond guy, and I don't remember what her name is, but I liked these two because if you'll notice, they have what I call like the fish eyes. They have the fish lips, right? So the fish eyes are kind of like a little dead, almost like a fish eyes, literally. Like they're almost a little dead, like, whatever. And you really got to make them laugh and be happy in order for them to actually like have these eyes brighten up a little bit. But they're normally known for having very bright eyes, as is the staple with Jupiter, and Sagittarius as well. But they also have these like fish mouths, right? Like they have these fish lips. If you ever meet Pisces people, like they have like these lips that look almost like they're like a fish's mouth. They're very beautiful people. I think that for all my Pisces family and friends, the best thing that you guys need to do is to just have more faith in yourself, honestly. If you had more faith in yourself, I think that life would go a lot easier for you. But that is going to be my little end note on the Zodiac. I want to say thank you all so much for watching. If you liked this video, make sure you comment and subscribe. Let me know what you think. Go get our book. Do whatever. I love every single one of you. If you have any questions, drop them down below. I'm here for you. If you need anything, or you had any other additional questions, if you want to know how to read and interpret natal charts, if you want more information, let me know. But that being said, I'm going to end the video here. So lots of love. Take care.